Thank you. What an honor. Oh my God. And happy middle life crisis, my friend. Oh my goodness gracious. It's funny you mentioned 1992. That is the year that this story takes place. In 1992, my best friend Matt and I decided that we were going to visit San Francisco for the very first time. We knew that there was another big gay city in this country, and we had to go visit it, right? Now, Matt and I were a little bit of an anomaly. Everyone thought we were brothers, and everyone thought we were straight. A friend of ours said, well, you know, you both dress like lesbian truck drivers. But what we didn't realize was the real reason we were having a hard time kind of fitting into the gay scene at the time was because we didn't know then that we were actually just daddies who were still stuck in twink bodies, right? We hadn't grown into our flannels yet. Well, we went out to San Francisco, and we ended up staying with a very flamboyantly gay friend of mine. His name was Keith. He was a friend of mine from high school. And when we showed up, he said, oh my gosh, guys, I have this brand new apartment, but would you mind staying in the empty room on the futon mattress in there? Sorry, I don't have something better for you. And we were like, well, you know, we're 22 years old. We're adventurers for sure. But then Keith said, another thing, I'm sorry, but I think there might be a mouse in the apartment. And I didn't think twice about that. I grew up with mice, as pet mice as a kid. But Matt said to me, I find that kind of worrisome. And I laughed and I said, oh, listen, buddy, if you meet your mouse this weekend and that's the worst that happens, it'll be a great weekend. And that's when he said, well, maybe you'll meet your mouse this weekend and you won't be laughing. And I am quite sure neither of us knew what he meant by that. Well, we spent the first few days in San Francisco chasing the twinks and getting our hearts broken. But on the final day there, I decided we needed a new goal because there was another thing that San Francisco was known for other than the gay scene, and that is LSD. Neither of us had ever done LSD before, and we'd heard so much about it. We were big fans of the Beat Poets and all that sort of thing. So Nat said to me, Kev, I have heard that there's this place called Haight-Ashbury. And I think what we should just do is go down there and hang around and see if anyone has some LSD, you know? And it's just like the ancient sages told us, you know, if you want some very safe drugs in a good situation to find them, just go hang around some grassy knoll in town and see what happens. And sure enough, we went down there, we found a grassy knoll, and the first thing we saw was one of the ancient sages, or at least a guy who looked a lot like Jesus, Caucasian Jesus from our indoctrinations in childhood. And he was just this fella who was playing with a hacky sack like he wanted to indicate to the world that it was 1992. I would say that if that song, Send Me On My Way by Rusted Root, was a guy, that was Jesus. So we went to Jesus and we said, hey, could you hook us up with some acid? And he said, whoa, dudes, could I ever? Monkeys in a barrel. And we said, yay. We had no idea what that meant. But he said, oh my gosh, these are so much stronger than normal doses. And he handed us 2 tabs, 2 little pieces of square cardboard paper, and then we saw, they had little drawings on them of monkeys in a barrel like the kids' game, and now we understood. And we paid him whatever, and we put him on our tongues, and we lay down on the grassy knoll, and we waited for the magic to happen. We waited about 40 minutes, and we felt nothing. So we went back to Jesus. We thought he might be a false prophet now. We said, hey, man, it's been like 40 minutes. We don't feel anything. And he was like, whoa, are you sure this is not a dud? And he said, no. I'm telling you, this stuff is stronger than strong. He said, I just gave some to that guy. And we look up some guy, looks like he's fornicating with a tree. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you both another tab. So he sold us both each another tab. We put it on our tongue, went back to the grassy knoll, laid down. We waited for about 30 minutes, and we felt nothing. Now we were not happy. We went back to Jesus, and we said, dude, these are duds. And he said, no, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Also, I've run out. I have no more to sell. But I just sold that girl a bunch of them. Maybe she'll sell you some. We look over. There's a gal who looks like Janis Joplin who is convinced she's being attacked by a swarm of bats. We were like, all right, we'll ask this Tasmanian devil over here what to do. She sobered up a second. She said, oh, yeah, man, I can give you a couple more monkeys in a barrel. So she gave us our third dose, and I'm sure you know what happened next. Put that on our tongue, waited 5 minutes when, of course, the first dose just started hitting. So now we were two guys who had never been to San Francisco and had never done LSD and had just done enough for the original cast of Hair. So we're sitting there on the knoll and we start to notice that the grass is breathing and our skulls are kind of glowing and our clothes seem to be made out of the same molecules as our skin, when all of a sudden a public bus pulls up in front of us, and it was like the clouds had parted. Matt pointed and he went, on bus, on bus. And he grabbed me and led me to the bus. Now, I have severe ADHD, so money is a thing that freaks me out at the best of times. But at this point in time, I didn't know what money was. The thought of using money to procure a ride on a bus was way too much for me. This acid hit me in the beginning of the trip way harder than it hit Matt. So he was taking care of me. He was going to take care of all the exchange of money and stuff like that, get us on this bus. He was literally holding me. We got on and we were riding for a little while when the most interesting thing happened. At the same time, both of us, after, 15 minutes or so, looked at each other and went, off bus, off bus. And that's how it went the whole day. There was just this way where we would be enjoying a particular kind of reality and then realize we were no longer enjoying that kind of reality and know at the same time that it was either off bus time or on bus time. So the rest of that afternoon is kind of like when you put film in a film projector and it gets loose and you can just occasionally catch little glimpses of what the fuck is going on. I remember at one point, for some reason, we were hiding in someone's bushes on their lawn. I remember another point where we were in a forest where gay men were cruising, which would normally be my thing. I'd be normally right at home there. But this time it was as if every head that popped out from behind a tree was like Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And then I remember at one point, in all earnestness, we spied a body of water somewhere, and I said, oh my God, it's Cape Cod. I can promise you it was not Cape Cod. Well, there came a point where we said, off bus, where it was just the most amazing thing because the timing had been so spectacular. We had no idea where we were. We hadn't looked out the windows. But this particular off-bus moment, we get off, realize the sun is setting, and we're at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. I got goosebumps. Every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps at this point. It was so beautiful. We knew we were not going to walk across that bridge lest we end up dying. So instead, we just sat on a grassy knoll and just watched the sunset and the moon come up. And at one point, I said, "Wow, that is a mad old monk of a moon." And Matt laughed so hard he was crying. To this day, he reminds me of the way I said that every time I see him. Well, at a certain point, we realized, wow, we're about 7 hours into this trip, and we're still out of our fucking minds. But now the sun is down, and we're scared. So we called my friend Keith and said, "Can you pick us up and take care of us?" And he said, "Okay, guys, I'll take you out for a night on the town, and we'll go bar hopping to various gay bars." So off we went, and again, it was kind of like the film and the projector. The evening was a blur. But at one point, we were walking down the street, and the most magical hallucination that's ever occurred to me occurred. For some reason that night, San Francisco seemed to be in black and white and kind of grainy, you know? And we're walking down the street, and I'm looking at the texture of the black and white sidewalk when suddenly a figure about 5 feet in front of me peels himself out of the pavement, at first in 2 dimensions, then in 3. He's about 4 feet tall, and he's striding along with a jolly stride, and he smiles and waves at me and says, "Hello there." It was Mickey Mouse. It was the original black and white Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse for real, talking just to me. I laughed so hard that I hit the pavement crying laughing. Keith was horrified because, of course, what was actually there was the sidewalk. But I just was so thrilled. I felt so touched that Mickey Mouse had come to say hello to me. And Matt said, "Well, I have to admit, you met your mouse." Later that night, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. Now it's like, I don't know, 17 or so hours that we've been tripping, and we're still tripping balls, but I'm starting to come down a bit, right? Matt, not so much. We come back to Keith's place. Keith locks himself away in another room, and here the two of us are just on this little futon mattress in an otherwise empty room, and Matt started freaking out. Something about trying to get to bed because he had a plane to catch early the next morning, and I didn't have to leave till later in the afternoon. So we're just trying to get to sleep, and he started to have real terror in his voice. He was like, Kev, oh my God, are you there?" And I'm right next to him. And he said, it's like I'm on a cliff and I'm about to fall off, and the cliff is my sanity. And he asked me to hold him, so I'm holding him like he's a soldier dying in the trenches. And even as I was holding him, he would say, "Kev, where are you?" I was like, I'm right here. But the worst part was the mouse. Remember, Keith had mentioned maybe there's a mouse in this house. And I'm sure there was no goddamn mouse in that house. But every now and then, Matt would go, "What the fuck? It's the mouse! It's not the mouse!" I'd be like, "No, there's no mouse. Please just go to bed. And finally, I passed out. And when I woke up the next morning, Matt was gone. He had gone to catch his plane, and only later did I find out he was still tripping on that journey. He said it was like that episode of The Twilight Zone with William Shatner in the plane. So it's just so strange to me. You know, they say when people take hallucinogens from the same batch, when more than one person takes it, there's often weird synchronicities, like two people knowing at the same time that it's time to get off the bus right as you're there at sundown at the Golden Gate Bridge, or someone saying maybe you'll meet your mouse and you won't be laughing, but you do, and you hit the pavement crying, laughing. So it's so kooky to me that there's two mice for two men in this story. Mickey Mouse brought me so much joy, but didn't exist. And this imagined mouse in the house brought him so much terror, and he probably didn't exist, and neither of us had any control over either of them, right? So it's just so amazing to me that, you know, the mind can be a minefield or a field of dreams. And sometimes nowadays, Matt will say, that's all in your head, something that I'm worried about, you know? So it's like he's got that on me too sometimes. So I don't know what to make of it, except to say, when we have those moments of wonder, we just have to take in the good. You have to soak it in, even if it's a memory. So every now and then when I'm drifting off to sleep, I will allow myself to go back and remember that magical moment where he's strolling right by me with his tail wagging and waving right at me and saying, "Hello there." A Mickey Mouse just for me. Thank you.
The Kevin Allison, everybody.